You articulate, you elocute, you enunciate issues in regards to racism in this country from an historical perspective in a profoundly lucid fashion. And I don't think there's a black person alive that does not appreciate that. I sit across from you every day and I appreciate it. Not offended by it at all. I appreciate it. But one of the things that I don't think you get, and I repeatedly have had to tell you this, is when it comes to the reality of a situation, you often shove that aside in the face of, well, you know what, this is right, period. And I understand where it's coming from. But what I'm saying is, and I've said it many times to you before, so this is not blindsiding you. It's easier to say that when you're white. The fact of the matter is, Dr. Michael Eric Dyson just highlighted from an historical perspective how right you were in everything that you said. But we also talked about the reality of the circumstances that Colin Kaepernick was facing. To walk into the workout with a Kuta Kente t-shirt, knowing that 32 owners, most of them did not want you in this league, that they had to be convinced, that Roc Nation and Jay-Z, obviously in concert with Roger Goodell, basically organized this. To get 25 teams, send representatives to go and watch your workout, to guarantee you the raw footage and the footage that they would send to all 32 teams, to talk to you about the interview, give you a heads up on what the questions would be, give you a heads up on what the workout would entail, assure you that essentially we're going to be as fair as we possibly can while not violating our tenets as a league, because we've already gone far enough by making an exception for you that we've done for no other player, because we recognize the wrong that has been done to you. For you to sit up there and to say that, you know what, who cares that he came to the workout with a Kuta Kente t-shirt? I'm telling you right now, if I am a white billionaire who does not identify with nor cares remotely about slavery, its history, all the things that it entails, et cetera, if they have that mentality, and you know they have that mentality, and your quest is to get a job in the NFL, it might behoove you to take a different approach. I am not saying that Colin Kaepernick, in terms of his thinking, in terms of what he suspects, is wrong. What I am saying is you must know that something like that is not going to work in your favor. And if you chose to go that route, why are you behind the scenes with you and your camp encouraging people and imploring people to help you get a job when everything you did Saturday gave an indication that getting a job wasn't paramount in your mind?
I'd like to respond to that, and this also responds to your point conveniently.
Sure.
Okay, I understand the position you're articulating. The reality is, here's the African-American plight. Here's ways that are effective to deal with it. Here are ways that may be idealistic but ineffective, and people not actually in the struggle, because race is tied to class in an inextricable way in this country. You're careful how much you kind of idealize things, and let's deal with reality. I appreciate that argument. First of all, should Kaepernick be grateful to, as I said, a de facto monopoly who has a greater responsibility, to be fair, for being denied his right to work for 3 years? For no other reason and by the way, he broke no rules, he broke no laws, okay? That's one. Two, now I want to directly address this to you, Stephen A., and to that point. What am I to do with my privilege as a white man and as a person on TV with an enormous platform, which, by the way, I benefit from the platform that you built primarily? What am I to do with that power, right? Am I to support the power structure that where injustice is ongoing, or should I speak truth to power using that privilege and that platform? When you say things like, Colin Kaepernick, who are you as a black man who unjustly, and now you're given this opportunity, who are you to ask questions about who the receivers are going to be, why it's last minute, or okay, you may be right. People may be right. Hey, Colin, it's not going to be perfect. You're asking them for a job. It's not going to be perfect. However, you know who I am? I'm a member of the media who will ask that question. Why was the workout arranged in this way? Why was there an ultimatum with 48 hours to accept? Why was the waiver not the standard waiver and would indemnify the NFL against another lawsuit, according to Kaepernick's camp?
Yes,
correct.
so they say.
Correct. Why only on that day? Why weren't cameras allowed in? Why hasn't he been working for 3 years? I will ask those questions, and I will also say, while you can focus on the world we actually live in, where if you wear a Kunta Kinte shirt, the white billionaires aren't going to like it, I am going to talk about the world we ought to live in and bring pressure to bear so that sooner than later we do live in that world where so the hell what someone shows up with a Kunta Kinte shirt. The reason that's significant to people, the reason the white power structure doesn't like it, I understand the sensitivity of Colin Kaepernick. You ain't Kunta Kinte.
Yeah, but you're
Stop.
the same.
But I do understand also that when that story was told in that miniseries on the Alex Haley book, people identified with a largely fictional character. This was what people went through.
But you're also,
this is the injustice.
But you're also the person who complained about him rolling up in Miami in a Fidel Castro t-shirt.
Hell
so
yeah.
why doesn't the same theory apply?
It does, because the Castro t-shirt is glorifying another oppressor who should not be glorified. And even if there's overlap and it gets messy and different oppressed communities disagree with that, whatever, if you wear a Castro t-shirt, I will criticize you every time. If you support the Chinese Communist government, I will criticize you. If you support the power structure that keeps Colin Kaepernick without a job, I will criticize you. I'll do it every time.
No, absolutely right. And first of all, kudos to you, as Stephen A. has said, because the deployment of your privilege in defense of those who are vulnerable, those who don't have access to that privilege, is extremely important. And it is important for a white guy like you to amplify deeply held, cherished principles and ideals that black people have from the very beginning articulated but couldn't be heard. So white privilege permits you an amplification and a hearing that others should be granted but are not. But that's the reality as well. So the use of your privilege in defense of a Colin Kaepernick and others who have been really besmirched in their character is remarkable and needs to be done. And I think at the same time in the public sphere, what Stephen A. is saying is that the realpolitik on the ground, what black people have to do. Look, is it fair or just that I have to tell my son 10 and 2 when the police stop you, have your hands? And you and I have had this conversation. Many Americans do, but we know there's an extra layer for black and brown people that when the police stop you, why do we have to basically kowtow, genuflect before the altar of the superiority of a police person and lose our humanity in the face of that? Because it's not right. It's not fair. But do I teach my children? Absolutely, because I want them to survive long enough to rebel later, to make a strategic intervention in behalf of those who need freedom. I think what Stephen A. is saying is that you're absolutely right. And on the other hand, if we cannot necessarily provoke strategically the very people, poke the bear before I get in. There are people who do things before they get in, and then when they get in, they're able to rebel. I stand with Colin Kaepernick 100%. I think strategy is not something that should be dissuaded as well.
Strategy is not something that should be dissuaded. And the reason why it's so profound that you make that point, and the reason why I seem to be going against you, Max Kellerman, is because what I'm trying to say to you is this. I get your point about speaking truth to power. There's nothing wrong with that. We applaud that. We welcome it. There's no question about that. But the problem is, in the process of all of this stuff that's going on, understand that you're a spectator of racism, not a participant in it, being victimized by it. And as a result of that, when you talk to people and you encourage them to just go out there gung-ho and say, buck the system, do what you want to do, because damn it, they're wrong and that's it. That's entirely different than just speaking truth to power. What you're encouraging them to do is to speak truth to power and to act that way, devoid of strategy in the moment where strategy is exactly what's needed in order for them to get what they want to get. And that's what you have to pay attention to.
Can I ask one question about Colin Kaepernick specifically? And I want to ask you, Dr. Dyson, all of you to weigh in. Do you think Colin should have compromised here with the NFL?
Look, the reality is it's an imperfect situation. He had a right to have the basic fundamental trust that should be present in order for a relationship to be struck. The well has been poisoned. It's poisoned on both sides by shenanigans. I think that there's legitimate argument to be made. If your ultimate goal is to show what you're able to do in the history, this is what Stephen A. is appealing to. And I don't want to speak on behalf of him because he and I have vigorous disagreements, but respect for our humanity. There are some black people say, give me half a field. Forget a whole field. Give me half a football. I will show these people out here what I can do. I will turn this joint out. Just give me half a chance. I'm going to go up in there, right? That's the kind of bravado, right? When you talk about a Jay-Z, maybe the reason Jay-Z, a hustler, who from the streets, nobody gave him anything, Nobody gave me anything, and I made something out of what I possess. I knew what I was up against. I knew that the tyrannical assault of a lethal NFL would put me in a certain situation, but I'm going to use this opportunity to warehouse and showcase my skill. Now, I think that there is something to be said for give some on one side, give some on the other, and there's a way in which Colin can achieve his goal. I think the achievement of the goal. Let me give you a quick example. Martin Luther King Jr. is in Chicago, moved there to highlight the plight of poor people. Mm-hmm. He's in the hood with this guy. He goes outside. A white man spits on him. The black man is about to haul up and hit him, and King said, hold on. You're mad at spit. But every day you're living with systematic and structural injustice. Mm-hmm. You're paying more rent than you should be paying. Your heat doesn't work. You're living in a slum. But the symbolism of the spit is so offensive to you that you're ignoring the structural issues. And I think there are some bigger structural issues that also need to be paid attention to. And while Colin Kaepernick is important and critical, there are NFL players who are black who are doing extraordinarily important things about, criminal justice reform, about on the ground, stand your ground laws. Those are the kind of things we need to pay attention to.
One thing I just want to be clear,
well.
and then you guys
so it's both and, not either or.
By compromise, when I asked you, should Colin Kaepernick have compromised? Should he have attended the workout that the NFL set up for him?
Yes.
Well, I think if he agreed to it, look, if he did agree to it, and he agreed to certain stipulations.
No, there were a bunch of outstanding issues that weren't resolved.
Max, do you think
that they thought would be resolved by the time, and they weren't resolved?
No, I don't. It's an open negotiation.
Because of this, I would like to respond to what Dr. Dyson just said, and in so doing, respond a little bit to Stephen A., and then I'll answer that question. Jay-Z, this is true of all immigrant groups to this country. Right. When legal means are when there's a glass ceiling, right? Where there's a ceiling, and you're cut off from advancing, from rising, you go to extra legal means. This is you talk about hustling. This is the history of the country, and then many of those immigrant groups, including Italian, Jewish, Irish, et cetera. And then once you've made your fortune, and then you can. Michael Corleone tries to go legit, right? And that's what Jay-Z did. Unbelievable job. And I understand working within the system, try to make it better. And maybe this is a big misunderstanding. However, the reason he couldn't work out for them the way they wanted is because Colin Kaepernick and his team believed, for very good reason, that they were dealing with an untrustworthy actor. There was enough reneging, according to them.
3 years he didn't have a job.
But even in terms of this process, there was enough suspicious behavior, reneging on understandings, and kind of appearance of smuggling in things other than the workout, where his team said they're not reliable. Now, Stephen A., you said you had a chance to work out. He did. He did it with cameras. In fact, all the scouts that I have read about have said what he just showed is he has elite arm talent. So he proved that. Now, if he's dealing with any kind of fairness here, he'll have a job with one of the 32 teams in one of their 64 spots.
Let me tell you why I believe that position that you just uttered is foolhardy. How many times, and I dare anybody on this set to deny this, are you trying to tell me everybody that's in the NFL, there doesn't exist people outside of the NFL trying to get in that's better than people on a roster? There is no team in the National Football League. There is no team in professional sports that can't have somebody on its roster that somebody outside is better than what you got in your roster. How many times I see scrubs every day. Every day.
Is there anyone out there with elite arm talent that took a team to a Super Bowl?
Let me get to my point. My point to you is you are too smart to not know that when it comes to the National Football League, it ain't just about your ability. It's about how you are going to act, how you are going to conduct yourself, et cetera, et cetera. We lamented the fact that Terrell Owens, even after he retired, had to wait so long, wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer. That was egregious. We know he's a first ballot Hall of Famer, but guess what? Behavior mattered. We see people like Des Bryant before he got injured and all of this other stuff still belonged in the league, but behavior matters. There's a plethora of issues and circumstances and situations where guys aren't necessarily the best, but they are on the out, but they're damn good enough, but they're on the outside looking in. Why? Because how you conduct yourself, whether or not you're a part of a team, matters. In the case of a Colin Kaepernick, what did the NFL teams fear? They said, if we bring him in an individual workout, then we have no cover. If we don't pick him on our squad, who's to say he's not going to castigate us? That's why the NFL had to get involved. So Colin Kaepernick, knowing that was a reality, his lawyers, knowing that was a reality, is what explained why the workout took place the way that it took place. How do you not know that?
I promise this won't take but maybe 30
And by the way, Max,
Yeah.
they agreed to let him bring his own receivers. He brought Nike, he was going to film a commercial. They agreed to that. They agreed to a whole bunch of stipulations which Colin Kaepernick can't permit.
This is the argument often used when people are trying to do the right thing and get the right thing done. The behavior of the subject is suboptimal. I agree about that. His behavior was suboptimal. But let's just keep in mind what this is about. Because he didn't want to stand for the national anthem, which breaks no laws in the United States of America. That's why we're the United States of America. Want to know why we're better than everyone? Because of that. And no rules even of the NFL. He has been denied a job for that reason for 3 years.
But who hasn't said that?
And now because of his suboptimal behavior, he still doesn't have a job?
I absolutely agree with that.
We all said that.
That is exactly right. And it is the fundamental flaw. The sins of the father, in this case, the NFL, are far greater than the sins of the son, Colin Kaepernick. There's no question about that, and we have to remind ourselves of that. And I will say this, Stephen A., here's the problem, though, that mediocre white guys get a chance to mess up, be petulant, Baker Mayfield. You can say things that a black quarterback, if a black quarterback ever said that, had that kind of temerity, that unabashed gall.
People still wondering about Lamar Jackson.
I mean, right. Hugh you're not the first guy to cry over your beer about your coach left and played for another team. So the acceptability, the acceptance of white petulance is certainly greater than that of a guy like Colin Kaepernick. And Colin Kaepernick is not being petulant. He's simply saying, provide me an opportunity to do what I do. So I think that that's extremely important. But the Jay-Z point, all I wanted to make is he goes inside. Without Jay-Z, this opportunity doesn't exist. Without Jay-Z, this particular opportunity doesn't exist. We need an inside game and an outside game. You got to have Martin. Look, they said two prophets. There's a central prophet who goes in and talks to LBJ. Let's get the Voting Rights Act. Let's get the Civil Rights Bill done. Then you have an outside prophet who brings pressure outside. You need both and. You need a three-point shooter and you need somebody on the baseline.
100%.
Stephen A. You need to be aligned.
Stephen A., the Nike that I'm being told by a source familiar with this, let's put it that way, Nike did not have a camera, or was there any request to have a camera there? It's propaganda from the NFL. Nike asked the NFL to retract that part of the statement, according to my source.
And time out. That's fine. And I can go with that because I heard the same thing. You know what my response to that is? I don't give a damn. And here's why. Because you're Colin Kaepernick. When you had your workout at Riverdale and you were in front of the media camera, the media that you invited, why didn't you give the media an opportunity to ask you that question instead of giving your speech and then running away? How come you didn't answer the question? You just want to talk, but you don't want to ask the question.
Enemy of the good.
We have to go. I understand Jay-Z was instrumental in getting this workout set up. Stephen A. was the only one to answer my question, so I want a yes or no answer. Do you think Colin should have compromised here and showed up on Saturday?
I think compromise is critical.
Yes or no?
I think showing up is important.
Yes or no?